And welcome back for round 4 of the Florida Midseason Showdown, our Reg E kickoff here in Orlando, Florida. Brady, we've seen some very interesting games so far, a lot of quick games, and this game here against, we've got Preston Stutzman and Brent Cahy?
Yeah, Kai, yeah.
Here going to be on stream. Two interesting teams, and 3-0. These gamers are going to start feeling the pressure as now their dreams of top cuts are becoming more and more likely. But the competition getting even tougher.
Absolutely. So something that's kind of funny about these teams right here is that so they're basically regulation C teams or regulation D teams. There's one thing that Brent has, which is the Ogre Pawn, but outside of that, like, these look like very standard run-of-the-mill regulation D teams. So from Preston, we see a Bramblegast, Fluttermane, GU, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Goldango, and Tornadus, which was used by Emilio Forbes, who piloted that team to get top 16 at the World Championships this previous year, and has been an ongoing regulation D team. And as for Brent here, he has the Urshifu Single Strike, Landorus, Heatran, Ogre Pawn, Tornadus, and Fluttermane. So it looks like we are going to be seeing a Tailwind mirror from Tornadus. So I feel like a lot of this will come down to how those Tornaduses are trained, whoever's faster, whoever can get the taunt off, and how that kind of goes down. I gotta say, from Brent's perspective, Landorus seems like it does very well into Preston's team.
We saw Shiftry, the new Wind Rider Pokemon, with the DLC launch earlier on stream. Today, here in round 4, we're going to get the OG Bramblegast Wind Rider. Now, I got to play against this team in Pittsburgh twice in back-to-back rounds. And let me tell you, that the Tumbleweed should not be disrespected, especially with that Wind Rider ability. And the biggest thing that not a lot of people are talking about is with the DLC, Bramblegast got access to Poltergeist.
Oh yeah, it did. We saw Emilio Forbes had that Terra Blast. That was his go-to same type attack bonus boosted option. So basically, what's kind of cool about why Bramblegast was picked, right? Because it's been illegal since Series 1, right? So you would think, why has it not been picked? Why is it now all of a sudden getting good? The reason why is because of certain Pokemon that have now entered the meta, such as Tornadus. It walls that. Such as Urshifu Rapid Strikes. It walls that. It can offensively pressure Fluttermane. So it's a really good, solid offensive option for a lot of these Tailwind teams. So it'll be very cool to see if it does work in this game.
All right, and we see both players here gearing up and getting ready for their round 4 matchups. I gotta be honest, I'm excited about this one. I see the Rhyperior over there on Brent's side. I love how a lot of players bring their own little plushes, their own mascots.
Right.
I think that's an interesting, component to all of this is, you get to show off a little bit of your own personality and show off the mons that, Rhyperior, not in the game right now, but he still gets to come along for the ride. Do you have anybody who you traditionally bring?
So I don't personally, bring any of my plushies or anything because I'm a minimalist, so I just tend to travel very, very light. However, I do know someone who is an international champion, and his name is James Evans, and he always travels with his little Skiplim everywhere he goes, man. So, people do that. It's if you want to travel with your little buddies, by all means, you're empowered to. That's something you're allowed to do here.
So I am relatively new to the VGC community. I just started playing last year with the Orlando Regional being my first event, and I showed up and I saw everybody there with these plushies, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I bring them? So now I travel with a Piplup and a Rowlet, which are my wife's 2 favorite Pokemon. So although she is fantastic and allows me to now travel the country and play this game, I bring those 2 as, little pieces of her to follow me along. And so far, the 2 tournaments that I've been to with them, I've done better than without. So maybe they're the good luck charms.
Something else I kind of got to point out inside this game, because now we're actually starting to get closer to it. So what's kind of interesting is that while that Bramblegas is traditionally good into Urshifu water, we actually don't see an Urshifu water from Brent's side of the field. It's an Urshifu single strike. So that will be very interesting to see that kind of like rock, paper, scissors dynamic between the Urshifu being able to beat the Bramblegas and also the Goldango. However, the Fluttermane being able to beat the Urshifu. So in my opinion, if I had to make a guess how this game is going to go, I feel like it'll all be dependent on 2 things. Number 1, the Tailwind. Who's going to get the better end of the trade with the Tailwind turns? If it's going to be at the exact same, if they're both going for Tailwind, if someone's going to go for Taunt and stop their Tailwind, then get delayed Tailwind, or if they're even going to go for Tailwind at all. And then I think the second thing which this is going to come down to is how Brent plays his Urshifu single strike, because Urshifu's single strike looks like it punches a hole into Preston's team here. The only thing which could theoretically offset that single strike's damage output is his own Urshifu Rapid Strike and his own Fluttermane. However, that Fluttermane, with the right condition, could get knocked out by a Terra Dark. It's not Terra Dark, actually, it's Terra Poison, but with the right condition, it could be knocked out by a Sucker Punch. So I feel like this game will go like two things we need to keep an eye out for this game is, number 1, who goes for the faster Tailwind, who manages their Tailwind better, and number 2, how Urshifu's single strike is played.
So we discussed earlier on that the difference in the Urshifus, now the Rapid Strike one does tend to see a little bit more play, because in a 1v1 environment, the Urshifu Rapid Strike tends to beat the single strike version. And as we get started, well, we see the Tailwinds. Now we've got Tornadus and Urshifu on Brent's side, Tornadus and Fluttermane on Preston's side, and a booster on the Fluttermane. I missed which stat.
I also missed which stat, honestly. If this is true to Emilio's version, it is a special attack boosting one.
Oh. I love how we get the dual Landorus close up here.
So, okay, this is a kind of interesting... So, okay, if you remember like what I was kind of saying earlier about like the Tailwind matchups, I feel like a lot of this gets dependent on who has the faster trained Tornadus, because if Preston's Tornadus is faster, then theoretically a Taunt could come out to deny Tailwind altogether, then maybe something along the lines of a Moonblast onto that Urshifu, knock it out one shot.
Urshifu not electing to Terra and potentially save itself from the Fluttermane, going to swap into a Heatran. Now, Heatran, a good quality switch in there, as Fluttermane can't do nearly enough damage. Terra Fairy going on to the Fluttermane for Preston's side, electing for the turn 1 Terra, and trying to put out as much damage as it can. Brent's Tornadus is faster than Preston's. That's going to be good information for both players going forward. And a Dazzling Gleam coming out, not going to do a whole lot to Heatran, but Chunks the Tornadus and Preston's Tornadus able to land the Bleak Windstorm, knock out Brent's Tornadus. So even though it was faster than Preston's, it doesn't get the Tailwind up.
So 2 things. Number 1, that was a very good switch into Heatran because it denied the ability to go for it denied the ability to go for the one-hit knockout onto the Urshifu on that turn. So that was kind of cool that you were able to. Now the only thing which I wasn't the biggest fan of is the fact that by switching into Heatran, you just kind of it's like you basically just traded one of your Pokemon for a taunt, you know, because you just ate up way too much damage. Now you don't have a Tailwind Pokemon. Although the Tornadus is taunted, it can just switch out and go for Tailwind in the late game. So that's very scary. You know, I would have maybe liked to have seen something like a Terra Poison coming out from the Urshifu, and then going for maybe a Wicked Blow onto the Fluttermane, you know, just to kind of put in the range of a Sucker Punch. However, we did not see that, and we do see the Brambleghast.
Brambleghast, a protect by the Fluttermane. interesting call against. Oh, but he makes a great read reading the protect into the Urshifu. Flash Cannon not going to do anything, and he gets a safe switch in to the Brambleghast. However, important to note, Tornadus wasn't able to get the Tailwind up, so Brambleghast didn't get the +1 to its attack.
So by Preston switching out of his Tornadus, he kind of did two things. Number one, he was baiting a Heat Wave by switching in Brambleghast, because if Heat Wave came out, then you were able to absorb that and get a Wind Rider, which could have been really cool. Number two, by switching out of the Tornadus, you allow yourself to have a guaranteed Tailwind inside of the mid/late game, which might come in clutch here depending on what else Preston has inside the back. Now this is kind of cool because you also protected your Flutter Mane and caught the Urshifu's Protect. So now Urshifu is forced to go for a Terra Poison if it does want to get off an attack here. Otherwise, Urshifu's forced to switch out. So you can abuse the fact that you know this Urshifu is probably clicking Terra Poison this turn to maybe double tap it with a Poltergeist / something else.
We are going to see a Terra on Brent's side. It's going to be the Urshifu going to Terra Poison. Now taking that double weakness from the Dazzling Gleam on the Fluttermane side and turning it into a resist. Fluttermane going for the Dazzling Gleam. Not going to do a whole lot of damage to either one of these Pokemon. Urshifu electing for the Wicked Blow, and wow, that's a lot of damage, even though it's resisted by the Fluttermane. Power Whip connects and is able to chunk down the Urshifu even further. And Heatran going to follow up, take out the Fluttermane, and Preston without his Terra for the rest of the game. However, Brambleghast didn't get touched there, and I got a feeling we're going to see Tornadus.
So that Terra Poison was brilliant, by the way. I have to give credit where it's due to Brent. Because not only did it wall the super effective Fairy-type attack that was coming out the previous turn from the Fluttermane, it also ended up catching the Bramblegeist from clicking the Power Whip, where that's why I was saying maybe something like the Poltergeist could have been cool because you could have pinned down that slot. However, because the Power Whip was selected, the Urshifu was able to get the whole end of the stick. Now, Preston does go back into his Tornadus, so this Tailwind is pretty much guaranteed here, along with the +1 onto your Bramblegeist. So, you know, if I was Preston, I still wouldn't be feeling too bad about that. But, you know, just like little tiny bits of like optimization, like, you know, like maybe going for like pinning it down using like a concept like that. However, we do see the Urshifu actually going for Protect here.
Was curious whether or not we'd see the Sucker Punch come out and try and get the Brambleghast down to its Focus Sash, but we see the Protect. Brambleghast getting its +1, a Poltergeist connects, and ooh, that's a lot of damage into that Heatran. Flash Cannon not able to take the Tornadus down below half. That Brambleghast did a good chunk into that Heatran, which I think is one of the more difficult mons for Preston's team to break through in terms defensively.
So Preston has positioned this board extremely well because with your Sash intact on your Bramblegeist, there is no way for Bramblegeist to go down this turn unless there was a double tapping on it. So, for instance, if the Urshifu were to click Sucker Punch and then Heatran were to click something like Flash Cannon, then you knock out the Bramblegeist, but then if you do that, then you're not attacking Tornadus. So basically, there is no shot that Preston can lose both those Pokemon this turn.
The
So Shadow Sneak, that was good.
Able to pick up the KO, a great call with the Tailwind. He knew that he was going to be faster and eliminated the ability for Urshifu to click Sucker Punch.
Yeah, like I thought the Shadow Sneak was very cool because that's the drawback, by the way, of being forced to Terra, like we saw earlier on the game with the Terra Poison. You ended up losing your resistance to that Shadow Sneak, which was able to pick up the one hit or the remainder of the damage back onto your Urshifu. So Terrain can be a double-edged sword sometimes. Like it might save you inside one turn, but the next one it might ruin you. So just make sure, like whenever you're clicking Terra, you gotta it's like just adding emphasis to the point where it's like if you're clicking it, you gotta make sure you get the most possible out of it, and you're not screwing yourself over for like later in the game as well.
And a huge thing, Brambleghast wasn't taken down to its Focus Sash. So it is now faster than everything else on the field and has Strength Sap. So because its Focus Sash wasn't broken, we may very well see a strength sap into potentially this Ogre Pawn, reducing its attack even further and bringing the Bramblegast all the way back up. But instead, we see the Shadow Sneak electing to just knock out the Heatran. All in all, probably a good call to keep the pressure on.
Yeah, I gotta agree. We could have seen something along the lines of like a, strength sap onto the Ogre Pawn, but then obviously maybe if you went for Bleak Wind and missed the Heatran, that could have backfired. So, Preston just trying to go for the 100% accurate option here of just, going to Shadow Sneak, making sure it knocks it out. And then wait, did we see Bleak Wind Storm actually miss that and just miss the KO on the Ogre Pawn?
It just missed the KO. It was able to survive. However, with the Shadow Sneak pressure on Preston's side of the field, this game looks all but wrapped up, and there we go. We see the battle was canceled. Preston going to take game 1 here in this best of 3 of round 4. Bramblegast put in a lot of work there.
Yes, it did. It all came down to that one turn where Bramblegeist was able to switch in entirely for free. It kept its Focus Sash intact, and then it was just able to just start plowing through damage with the addition of the Tailwind coming out from the Tornadus after the Fluttermane decided to, get knocked out. I feel like going into game 2, what will probably be different is Preston will not let his Tornadus go down for nothing like he did inside the previous game. I'm assuming there's going to be an adjustment somewhere around basically making sure you get up a Tailwind from your side of the field, because not getting up Tailwind from Preston's perspective, from not getting Tailwind from Brent's perspective, messed up Brent's side of the end game.
Oh, and we didn't even really talk about the fact that turn 1 where Brent taunted Preston's Tornadus, in virtually every circumstance, Tornadus is clicking, Tailwind or taunt itself. But Preston had elected to go for the Bleak Wind Storm right out of the gate and completely negated that taunt. So while initially it would have seemed that taunt was a great move by Brent, Preston played that beautifully and set himself up, like you had mentioned, for a mid-late game Tailwind, allowing him to keep the pressure on against Brent. And game 2, totally different. Well, not totally different, but we see both Tornaduses come back out, but instead of the Urshifu and Fluttermane, we've got Heatran and Goldango making their appearances.
So right off the bat, just from a turn 1 neutral perspective, I would have to say that I believe Brent has the upper end of the stick just from turn 1, because you either force a defensive switch out from the Goldango to, let's say, switch into Bramblegeist to be resistant to the Heat Wave or be immune to it, or it's like if it does stay in, then it doesn't really get anything accomplished. So we do see it switch out, back in the Bramblegeist. There we go. So the question is, did Brent fall for this?
Let's see, we've got a Bleak Wind Storm. There's one attack boost. This thing's going to connect into the Tornadus. Preston not electing to go for the Tailwind. His own Bleak Wind Storm connects on both Pokemon, doing a decent amount of damage. But now we've got +2 Bramblegast.
So this Bramblegast has the opportunity to be at +3 by the end of this upcoming turn. So, wait, did we see that right? Did Preston's Tornadus move before Brent's? I actually didn't catch that. Did you see?
It did. No, I'm sorry. Brent's still moved faster,
okay.
So it is faster. It wasn't well, if it is a speed tie, Brent's won them both. However, Preston's in a good position here with the Bramblegast, because the Heatran can't put as much pressure as it wants, but Poltergeist coming into the Heatran, +1 did a lot, +2 takes it out.
Yep, that's what's really cool about this Bramblegeist, that basically you don't have to dedicate your Terra to get knockouts like that, whereas on the previous version of this team you had to have Terra Blast, so that would have involved like a Terra Ghost coming out, which would have been 100% accurate, going for that. So but now it's like Preston preserved his Terra while also going on the offense. So this Bramblegast being at +2 inside the attack, It's just kind of a menace right now. It's the other crazy part is that it also walls its Tornadus. So it doesn't care about Tornadus. Literally, Bleak Wind Storm just means more attack boost for it.
Absolutely. Now, you still have the Shadow Sneak pressure. Preston's Tornadus was taunted in that last turn, so it's not able to put up Tailwind, and Brent's Tornadus still around can and does. So now Preston can only match the Tailwind, but keeps the his Tornadus on the field.
Now, yeah, obviously, like Tornadus being like taunted right now, it cannot, click like a Tailwind or anything. But maybe if it stays around for the next few turns, it might be able to. And like what I just really love how Preston positioned this board here is that by allowing Tornadus to stay around for another turn, that basically guarantees that if Tornadus does attack, you get an extra boost on your Bramblegeist. So it's kind of crazy right now because you could theoretically go for a Poltergeist onto the Urshifu if you think it's going to Terrasilize, or you could just go for a Power Whip if you just really wanted to just kind of nail it right now. So let's see what actually happens.
And there we go. We've now got a +3 Brambleghast on the field. Tornadus is going to go down, but because Brambleghast is immune to that move and it's holding a Focus Sash, Brambleghast is going to get a turn here to see what kind of damage it can do. Holds on by the Focus Sash, and ooh, Preston rocking with Poltergeist and Power Whip. The Power Whip does connect. And there goes Urshifu. 2 major threats already taken off the board by this little tumbleweed.
Yeah, Brambleghast has so far been the MVP. I just want to just take a quick little snapshot as to what it's done this game. Number one, it switched into 2 attacks and it just ate both them up. So it just negated basically just 2 attacks from 2 Pokemon, and it powered itself up, and then it just got 2 knockouts in return. So it's done so much this game. And I think it can just Shadow Sneak into the Tornadus just to knock it out.
Absolutely. The Tornadus in a difficult spot. Brent, without any priority left on his side of the field, can't knock it out. And you've also got a big offensive threat in a Choice Specs Goldengo on the other side of the field.
Yeah, so, instead of my perspective, I'm pretty sure Preston has this locked up 100%. By going for a Shadow Sneak onto Tornadus, and then something along the lines of maybe a Shadow Ball into the Ogerpon, you just basically just keep overwhelming damage. Shadow Sneak locks down this Tornadus, ensuring that it cannot go for an attack for the rest of the game. You just want to make it like a 1v3. If the Water-type move does go on to the Goldengo, then that means it did not knock out the +2 Brambleghast. And if it did knock out the Brambleghast, that means it did not knock out the Goldengo. So, just by knocking out any one of these Pokemon, which you see the Shadow Sneak exactly coming out here, knocking out Tornadus, now it's a 1v3, and Ogerpon is not inside of a good board state.
And Ogerpon, without a spread move, can't knock out both of these Pokemon. The Ivy Cudgel into the Goldengo. It's not able to knock it out. A Choice Specs Thunderbolt isn't able to knock out the Ogerpon itself due to the +1 of the special defense. But Brambleghast with the Shadow Sneak. Brent, his one play is this here to try and knock out the Brambleghast.
No!
By tacking into it. Now, with the Tailwind, he's going to be faster. Brambleghast goes down because he goes into the Spiky Shield.
Okay, so, I would have liked to have seen maybe like a Power Whip or like a, Poltergeist. I don't even know if you can attack with Poltergeist, honestly, because I know Poltergeist used their item and it has its mask. So, maybe you could limit check that. But all I know is like, okay, yeah, no, it's over. Okay, there we go. You just got to protect Fluttermane.
Fluttermane comes onto the field, and it is a special attack. You were correct in that. Brent going to run from this battle. He sees the writing on the wall, and yet another very fast 2-0 here on stream. wow, was that Bramblegast just putting on so much pressure in both games.
Yeah, so hyper offense seems to be the Florida strategy. Maybe it's not just Florida. Maybe it's like just like Pokemon Showdown right now because it's brand new with the format. But hyper offense, we've seen so much of it today. We have not had a single game 3 on camera yet, have we?
No, we haven't. It's been interesting. Now I know that both of these players have been playing this game for a while. Preston is somebody who I travel with and go around the country with, and is a good friend of mine. And so excited to see him doing well. But Brent, he just didn't really have the tools to deal with the Bramblegast, which,
Yep.
it's one of those mons that can really catch you off guard if you're not prepared for it.
You know, what I would have liked to have seen more from Brent potentially could have been that Landorus. Now, I was really expecting the Landorus to be like the big shooter inside this game when combined with like the Urshifu single strike. The reason why is because the Terra Blast can knock out Bramblegast, it can intimidate Bramblegast, it can knock out Fluttermane, it can knock out Chi-Yu, it can knock out Urshifu Rapid Strikes, Stomping Tantrum gets Goldango, and also you can hit the Tornadus. So I think benching the Landorus may have been Brent's biggest downfall inside of that set. However, I also do have to say that, you know, it's not that easy because if you have Landorus and if it's positioned with like an Urshifu Rapid Strike, if you're up against that, it could just kind of, you know, nail you down before you can do anything. So, you know, I felt like all in all, Preston just played the Tailwind War better, where it's like, I don't think Brent was able to get up, was Brent even able to get up like one turn of Tailwind? I don't believe so into that entire set.
Brent was able to get Tailwind up in that game too. However, it didn't matter because the Shadow Sneaks from the Bramblegast were just too oppressive. The Poltergeist was able to knock out the Heatran, and because the Tornadus wasn't able to actually touch the Bramblegast, Brent couldn't knock it out because of the Focus Dash.
Yeah, it was like, that's right. It was like, the way that Preston like positioned that was where it's like Tornadus was left on the board for like an elongated period of time, and it was just captured there just doing nothing because it literally could not touch Bramblegast, and it was just sitting there. It's like, great, you know, I'm happy if you want to attack into me. Bramblegast just sitting there like, great, that's another attack boost for me. Let's keep going. And you know, Bramblegast just like, it was the MVP there. Yeah, that's why I would have liked to have maybe seen Landorus because you could have Terra Blasted it. Outside of that, though, I would like to say that was a pretty good set. That was a treat to watch.
Absolutely, it was played very well. Each player made great calls. It just seemed that the ones that Preston made put him in a position that allowed him to capitalize on the reads that he made. Whereas, you know, Brent taunting that turn 1, game 1. He wasn't able to get any benefit out of it. Even though he prevented the Tailwind and initially prevented the +1 attack, he wasn't able to take advantage of the reads that he made. However, you know, he's still sitting at 3-1. He still has a great opportunity to close out, win his last 2 matches. Preston at 4-0 is probably feeling pretty good about his Regulation D team, even though we've now entered into Regulation E. It's been very interesting to see how players have adapted to quite literally a brand new rule set on day 1, being able to utilize some of the new Pokemon, but also, you know, sticking with what they were using the prior regulation and performing really well with it.
Speaking of adapting, you know, I'm kind of curious on your opinion on this, Matt. So basically, you know, we've seen a lot of Tailwind inside the metagame so far. You know, almost every single round had Tornadus on. I think there was only one round, or no, every round has had a Tornadus on it. So do you think that Trick Room will be picked up later as the format progresses, or do you think that Trick Room is just out the window entirely?
Well, I think that's really interesting because of a point that you had made earlier regarding hyper offense. So people like going quick. They like being able to end games in a couple of turns. That's why you see the Dragon Knight Chen Pao lead the Fluttermane Chi. You want to wipe things off the board. In order to play Trick Room and play it effectively, you got to slow things down. You got to think through your turns and make sure that once you get Trick Room up, you've got 4 turns to win the game. Now, because of how oppressive Tailwind is right now, there's only so much that you can do in order to match it. I think Preston did a great job in utilizing one of the main counters to Tailwind, but one of the new mons that got introduced with the DLC, the new Ursaluna Blood Moon, a variant of the Hisuian, Pokemon, not a variant of, or I guess, how do I want to say? It's not a regional variant, but a mon bred out of Hisui in regular Ursaluna. Now we've got Ursaluna Blood Moon, a special attacker that's just as slow, that has decent bulk on both the physical and special side, and it's really difficult to contend with. I'm honestly surprised that we haven't seen it on stream yet.
So what I like about Ursaluna Blood Moon, so like there's 2 things in comparison to like, its brother, Ursaluna like regular. So they do completely different things, even though like they're technically like the same, Pokemon, quote unquote, entirely different. So Ursaluna, the standard one, you want to go like a gut set, which has the benefit of being immune to Amoonguss and being immune to Spore, and it's actually a little bit bulkier. It's a little bit bulkier than the other Ursaluna. Now, as for Blood Moon, it does not have the ability to be immune to Spore because it does not have guts. But what it does have going for it is its ability, Blood Moon. It is called Blood Moon, right? Its ability.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, its ability, Blood Moon, makes it to where it is it's called Mind's Eye. Mind's Eye is the ability.
Correct. Blood Moon is the move.
Yes, where Mind's Eye, basically, like, it allows it to hit through, like, ghost types, and it also gets access to this very cool move called Blood Moon, which is basically like a Hyper Beam, except it cannot miss, and you can protect the next turn. You just can't use the same move twice. But basically, what I really like about Ursaluna is that there's 2 ways to kind of run it. You could run it with like the Throat Spray, where it's like you go for a Hyper Voice, get +1 special attack, or you can go a Calm Mind one because its special defense is actually not that bulky. Its special defense is not the highest thing. Its physical defense very high. But if you give it a Calm Mind, you can make up for that lack of special defense. That's kind of cool. A cool little thing about Ursaluna. Now, another thing, which is a returning Pokemon, which I hope to see later into this tournament, is Kommo-o. Tell me about Kommo-o. Have you had any experience playing up against it in any past formats?
Not in any past formats. However, utilizing Pokemon Showdown, I was absolutely destroyed by a Terra Steel Boom Burst Kommo-o. And Kommo-o, it's struggled since its inception in Generation 7. Being a dragon fighting type, you're ×4 weak to Fairy. That puts you in such a difficult position, especially with the mon that they introduced here in Generation 9 in Fluttermane. Initially, you look at Kommo-o and you write it off. However,
Terastallization.
Changing the game
Boom.
for so many Pokemon, giving them an opportunity to take advantage of a brand new type, and now Kommo-o, with its signature move, Clangorous Soul, able to cut its own HP and get an Omni Boost, a +1 to all of its stats. It's going to be a menace once people really start tinkering with it.
So, I'm an old head, so Kommo-o, like back in my day, Kommo-o, we had to use a Z move to get our setup. Where this one, Basically, it's very very similar to the old Como, where it gives you an Omni boost, except instead of it being combined instead of an offensive move, it's much worse now. It cuts 33% of your HP. So normally you'd be like, dang, why would I ever use that? Because I don't want to lose a third of my HP. But what's kind of cool about that though, is that you can combine that with something like Sinicha, which Sinischa. You know, you can combine it with that, which can restore 25% of its HP, and then furthermore, you can combine it with something like Clefairy, and you can heal Pulse Up, or maybe a Pollen Puff from Amoonguss. And suddenly it's like, oh, great. So now I'm at Omni boosted. Now I can just start sweeping through. And not to mention, if you give it the Throat Spray, it's a sound-based move. So you boost all your stats by 1, but your special attack gets boosted by 2. So it's like, it's really potent now. I love Como. I've always been a big fan.
Hey, well, I'm hoping that potentially we'll see a round 5 Como-O. But at this point, we are going to send it to break as we get set up for round 5. We look forward to seeing you back here and ready for more VGC.